Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. That's my Thanksgiving Ted. Hi, everyone.
It just gets worse lately.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's going to recover, but
Never.
it hasn't.
It's too late. When is any of it going to recover? The Commanders are spiraling downhill. The Wizards are an abomination. Terps basketball, I can't even rely on that. Can't even rely on that one.
UVA lost yesterday after I said they were the latest hope.
The Terps are playing UMBC tonight.
What could go wrong?
If I had tickets, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go because I'd be scared. I'd be scared that, like, what? They're supposed to win. What if they don't? Or let's just say they win at the buzzer on free throws.
You're not even happy about it.
No. You're furious. So it's been a rough go around here, guys. Rough go. If you're curious, I went to practice today. Vibes ain't great. But you know what? It's sports. Who knows?
Well, vibes ain't great
Who
either
knows?
because it's a loss to the Giants. They definitively lost, and they're on a short week, so nobody's ever happy about that anyways.
I'm psyching myself into what could possibly be a theory that works for me. And the theory there is none except for this one. I'm gonna try this theory out this week just to make myself feel good about everything. The Giants just got our number. I don't know why. I just don't know why. I got to tell you, and I made the mistake of rewatching that game because I have to. And boy, they got Hal's number. They're like the one team. What I love about Hal is he's kind of unshakable at times. Not against them. It's 2 times now that he had them doing the wrong. They had him doing the wrong stuff often, a lot. So they just got our number. That defense, that coordinator's got his numbers, got our line's numbers, got them freaked out. Doesn't know what to do. So my running theory would be, well, we beat them once at the end of last year, so maybe we got their number. That's my running hopeful theory of what chance do we have in 2 days down there off of what's been going on the last few weeks. Like, it doesn't feel good, but that's my new running. Here's what I've come up with to try to psych myself into believing we're in for a surprise on Thursday.
Zero shot.
It's never zero.
Okay.
It's sports.
1%
it's always
chance.
1%. Like I said, UMBC could beat Maryland tonight. That could happen. Before the season, that would have been a 0% chance it turns into 1%.
I'm just going to go pure off the field here. Will the Dallas Cowboys lose a game where Dolly Parton is performing at halftime?
See, I'm psyched about that part.
No, I know. But
real psyched about that part.
Something just goes hand in hand that the universe isn't going to let them lose having Dolly freaking Parton there at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's just my theory. No play. But all of the signs point to there's no way the Cowboys lose that game.
It doesn't feel like it.
Right.
There have been a lot of weird moments, through the years with it. Most of them have actually been against Washington.
Yes.
Like the Clint Logley game he was the Cowboys quarterback when that happened. The only weird one that we have on our side really is the Scab game. Where they had they were the one team that had most, if not almost all of their players. And we had a full roster of players off the street in the Scab year, and they won down there. So there have been weird things that have happened.
There's one up here, the Sean Taylor run back one. That was a weird one.
Yeah.
Where they blocked the field goal.
Right.
Sean Taylor picked it up, got a
Yes.
face mask penalty. Nick Novak gets one final shot. They did it. That was a weird one, too. But that was here.
I mean, it's funny. I brought this up the other day because Tommy DeVito, undrafted rookie free agent, beats the Commanders. The last time any undrafted rookie free agent quarterback beat this team was 21 years ago. Chad Hutchinson, the Dallas Cowboys. So there's been weird things that have occurred. Yeah. And granted, like I mentioned that, also like how many undrafted rookie free agents have they faced in the last 21 years?
Can't be that much.
What? 1? 2? Any?
Right.
Like, was Fromm that maybe a couple years ago? Maybe he was.
Don't know.
I don't remember. Was he drafted or not? I have to look. I mean, like, that probably doesn't even happen very often that you end up playing someone like...
Was DiNucci? I mean, DiNucci might have been.
DiNucci might have been.
Which would have been two of the same franchise.
He started against us, right? DiNucci?
I don't know if he started. I think Dalton might have started the game he came into. Remember that was the year where they just fell apart with injuries. That was the year Dak got hurt, and then
because the Thanksgiving Day game, I went through this because I'm looking at stuff for the game. The Thanksgiving Day game 4 years ago, Dalton started, and the game was actually very close. Then they did, you'll recall, a really stupid fake punt at around their own 20-yard line that we stopped. Got the ball. Gibson scores immediately, 1 of 3 touchdowns, and it spiraled. From there, it totally spiraled from there. And we ended up winning huge because we scored 21 in the fourth quarter. That was incredible. I unfortunately was not there live because it was pandemic. So this happened in front of no crowd. But I'm sure everybody was at home eating the turkey with the masks on.
Yes. Well, no, not
Put a mask on the turkey. Yeah.
Put a mask on the turkey.
Yeah. Masked potatoes. So,
Boo.
yeah.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. You like that
It's 4
joke.
years too late.
You like that joke. And I can't believe
Mask
it took me 4
jokes
years
don't
ago.
play anymore.
That joke should
Nobody
happen.
uses them.
Why did it take me so... God, that would have been great for the broadcast, that game. How's everybody's masked potatoes?
Mask and cheese.
You enjoying it?
Things were too serious 4 years ago.
COVID berry sauce?
COVID berry sauce. It was too serious 4 years ago. Nobody was making those
couldn't
jokes.
Because we all thought we were going to die.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, and we made them play football anyway.
We had Thanksgiving Zoom calls.
Take your masks off and play football, guys, for our entertainment. Do it. Anyway.
That was definitely in front of a crowd. I feel like it was just one of the limited attendance.
Oh, right, because it was
games.
Texas.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They're like, y'all snowflakes. Like, we're allowed people
because
to
they had the
come
World
here.
Series. The World Series there earlier.
That's
the
right.
month earlier.
So there was a crowd. We weren't allowed to go.
Yeah.
Our rules were we couldn't go. Their crowd, but it wasn't full. It was it was probably something. I have to
I feel
look.
like it was.
Hold on. No way.
Because I feel like it definitely
Hold on.
was.
Hold on.
They had the World Series there the month before.
Oh, my God. You might be right.
Yeah,
Hold
dude,
on.
I'm 99% sure because I feel like
At Dallas Thanksgiving.
I feel like for half a second I looked into going because I could go to a football game to watch them play, and I looked into it.
I'm going to probably have to look this up on the NFL game book to find this because it's not saying on the recap what the attendance was. I'll have to
Does it
look
just say
that
zero,
up.
or is there not
Well,
anything?
there's no listing of the attendance. So if you go to the NFL game book, which I'd have to find, which is annoying, then you might be able to find. Give me a second. You might be right. Was that a full crowd there?
I don't know if it was a full crowd, but
I doubt it. Right? I doubt it. This is annoying. All right, I'll find it at some point. Hold on. 2020. Hold, please. Oh, this is annoying. And their site jumps around on you, so he messes up your
30% attendance.
30%.
30,048 was the exact attendance.
All right. Thank you for finding that. Okay, so there was the crowd that we weren't allowed to go, and it wasn't allowed to be full because even Texas had to have a limit at that point.
Right.
Anyway.
Which is weird because for the World Series they didn't right across the street.
Anyway, listen.
Sure.
I'd like to think
We digress.
weird things have happened in this series. Hopefully, a weird thing happens on Sunday. All evidence points to not a good outcome. All evidence. But who knows?
It's also, since that 2020 game their games up there or down there have gone sideways. Not just bad, but
the only other freaky thing that we had down there was the Brunel Santana Moss game.
Yeah, you're not even talking. You're talking old stadium at that point too. But
That's right. That's Texas Stadium.
But I'm just saying, since that 2020 Thanksgiving game, the last three have gone sideways on them. The first one after that was Duran and John got in a fight. Swinging at each other.
Well, that's because they had half their roster, and they were like,
it was
oh, God.
40 points in the first half or whatever that was.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Right.
It was like Christmas Eve or something like that, or right around there.
Then last year was the week 2, I think, Wentz. And Wentz.
Yeah, it was early.
Week 2 or 3.
It was interesting. Nikki Jabala tweeted. Did you see what she tweeted out today?
No.
She goes, "Can you believe this was only a year ago? It's your favorite. Dan on the field with a photo op with Jerry Jones."
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say as well.
This is pre the ESPN media report, pre the Thursday night game. It was so early in the season. Dan did the photo op with Jerry Jones. Remember that? And it was we're buddies. And you could see Jones' look on his face like he was like, I don't know, man.
It takes me everything not to cuss when we talk about that. When they do the whole rivalry renewed, guys.
Uh-huh.
Oh, my
friends and rivals. Remember that? We're friends.
I'm telling you, man, there are a few things that piss me off as much as they did when they did that.
Yeah, she tweeted that one out.
That was the Wentz game.
That was the one where it looks like Jerry was like, we're taking a picture of this? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Yep.
I despise that moment so much. Out of all the things Dan has done.
Well, he was trying to.
That was just a culmination of so many things.
That was, I'm trying to save my tenure here.
That was also the
and that was the, remember, if Jerry's got his back, it's going to be hard for it. That's we were at the point of, if Jerry's got his back, it's going to be hard to get him to sell the team.
Oh, no.
It was when Jerry started to turn.
Oh, no, I have a theory now. So the joke now is, not only has the team been bad for the last 2 years because since the Commanders was launched, now the black jerseys are cursed because they seemingly suck in them too.
They wore them down there for that game, didn't they?
That was the first time they wore
them. It was
the
first time they wore them. Have they won in those?
They won once against the Falcons in the rain last year. That was it. Every other game has been like tragic loss.
That's the one time they wore them, and I didn't call the game.
Oh, uh-oh. Call Scott.
I got COVID. That's when I got my masked potatoes at Thanksgiving last year.
I think I can name the 4 other games, though. It would be the Cowboys.
I couldn't hang out with my family last year at Thanksgiving because I had COVID.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's all coming together now.
They made me sit in the corner, far away.
You had COVID.
Yeah, well.
So they played in Dallas in the black jerseys. They won against the Falcons. Yep. They had the worst loss probably out of all of them was the Vikings loss against Kirk and company.
Oh, they blew that one.
They blew that one, too.
That one. Yeah.
The last game against the Giants, they lost.
That was a bad pick by Heineke, right?
Yes.
Last one was the Bears.
The Bears.
Bears and the Giants.
I'm sorry, guys. We have to burn the black jerseys now.
I think we might have to get rid of those for a little while.
I think we're done.
Well, we're done this year with them. So let's just, let's rethink those for a later date.
2 of the worst losses that I've ever seen at FedEx Field. They're wearing those.
Yeah.
Oh,
not good.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Because I like them, too. I think they're good. I think they're a good look, but burn them.
That's right. They wore them in Dallas. That didn't go very well.
Didn't go well.
Cooper Rush lit them up. It was Cooper Rush played. Yeah. Dak was hurt.
Right.
Cooper Rush played. Yeah. That game wasn't close.
Oh, God.
I don't remember what score. That game wasn't close.
Too. I mean, that was.
Yeah, he threw for 85 yards or whatever it was. And then everyone said it was fine. And then Scott asked the question and people freaked out on him. We got a weird history, man. We got twists and turns that I think would rival anybody's, honestly.
I've bought 3 of those black jerseys and they're
you
not
did?
gonna wear them, yeah.
Who you got? Payne, Allen, and Terry?
Yeah. That's it.
Payne, Allen, Terry? Okay.
I
think Cam Curl looks good in that one.
I
think B-Rob looks good in that
I'd buy one of Cam if he signed an extension, but I bought the Terry because it was the first day you could buy him at the stadium, and my choices were Terry, Chase Young, Carson Wentz. That was it. And I decided, let me go with the guy that has been here and will be consistent.
Didn't you say your brother bought a Carson Wentz jersey? Didn't he do that?
No, one more quarterback. He bought a
Fitzpatrick.
He bought a Fitzpatrick jersey opening week. It was good for about 40 minutes.
That's good.
The receipt.
Did he take it off?
The receipt literally says 12:45 p.m. The best.
And what was it? 1:15? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's like, oh, all right.
Well, it was more of a bit anyways.
It's going to be a rough year.
It's more of a bit anyways. We all knew that wasn't going to work out, but it was like, just have this one for the closet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Let me talk about the Eagles last night.
Sure.
Who came back, beat the Chiefs, held them scoreless in the second half.
That was a really nice comeback for them.
They, again, I'll go back to, they do a few things really, really, really superior well, and very few other teams do anything that is that automatic that they do. So while they, again, aren't, to me, operating like they were a year ago, they're currently the toughest out in football. They just keep winning. So it's hard to deny what they're doing.
Right.
And at this point, is anyone catching them in the NFC outside of the 49ers? I guess maybe the Lions could. It's not going to be Dallas. I don't see it. I mean, Dallas, we'll see a couple days, but I don't see it. And Dallas had their shot at them, just like Washington had their shot at them,
right,
and gave it away up there. So I color me impressed. They just keep doing this. They find ways to win. That's a really good win last night when their offense wasn't doing anything for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, dam breaks against them. They have too many weapons. They're too versatile. And when they get into short yardage situations, they're unstoppable. Like, just unstoppable. In any short yardage situation, they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
I think Troy Aikman said the line from Sirianni was, we start every drive 1st and 9. Because we know if we have to get a yard, we'll get it every single time.
Wow.
It's true. You can't stop them in short yardage. They can only stop themselves.
Yeah.
So, they're streaking towards what looks to be best team in the NFC, and we'll see where they are at the end of all of it.
It's funny to watch them because they don't panic. They almost,
not at all.
It is almost like they are just waiting for the other team to make mistakes. So they did it, obviously with the Commanders, a month ago. But then last night, they were just waiting for the Chiefs to mess up, and the Chiefs all of a sudden couldn't catch a pass from Mahomes all of a sudden. It was like, oh, well, now they're going to win because you're screwing up what you shouldn't be screwing up. And lo and behold, Hurts gets that last touchdown, and it was done from that point on.
While he plays totally differently than Tom Brady, he's got the same thing that Brady had forever. He's got very average receivers.
Yeah.
Outside of a great tight end.
Yeah, you're
That's the same
you're talking
thing.
Mahomes, yeah.
Yeah. Mahomes has the same issue. He has okay to average receivers who failed him last night, with a great tight end who also failed him last night, actually. And, that's what Brady went through forever, where they just, until they got Randy Moss for him, he never had elite talent out there, was winning anyway. That's what Mahomes has been doing. It does feel a little aberrational. I mean, Valdez-Scantling could have won the game.
Right.
Should have won the game.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Should have won the game. They had bad drops. They had a fumble and 2 turnovers in the red zone, and they lost by 4.
Right.
So they could probably characterize this as, if we don't beat ourselves or we make a couple of catches, we probably win, and I'll hear out their case for this. But I've seen this with the Eagles over and over and over. They're in all these close games. They win them all.
Yeah, they just wait for the other team to screw up. I mean, or
they're one of these teams.
Or it's, we get the ball last. Great. We already know what's going to happen.
Hurts had one inexplicable game against the Jets where he threw a couple of really bad picks, especially one late that let them come back and win. But that's the thing. They don't make a lot of these mistakes. That's the other thing. They don't hurt themselves. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They are unstoppable in short yardage situations. When they have to rely on a run game, they're really good at it, and they're good for 2 or 3 plays down the field a game.
Right.
Because they have 2 receivers that either one of them take top off at any point in time on you.
That was the funny part again last night, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. I want to say it was first half or maybe the third quarter. A.J. Brown once again got pissed off on the sidelines, and he and Hurts.
He doesn't like when he's not getting the ball.
He and Hurts were going at it again, which they were prefacing by saying they're like best friends off the field. Yeah. But it was like, every Eagles game I watched, that guy's pissed that he's not getting the ball enough. And then sure enough, they throw it to him 3 times in a row, and all of a sudden you have to worry about him.
Yeah. Is that a Super Bowl rematch preview? Maybe.
I mean, the funny part is the Chiefs have done this to us the last 3 years too, of where they don't have a bad record, but they're
7-3.
Right. But they're middle of the season, they struggle a little bit, and everyone's going, "Oh, I don't know if they can do it," and they're going to be right there in the end anyway.
Of course, because they got Mahomes,
right?
And they actually have their defense is way better than it was a year ago.
Yeah, right.
So that'll keep them going too. And bad teams can't beat them,
right?
So, or they'll lose one, but not all of them. They won't slide through a schedule and have a bunch of losses. They're too good for that. So they'll be there in the end. And nobody in their division can catch them.
Yeah, that's right, too. Yeah.
So they're going to win their division. Even if they lost a couple more, they're still going to win their division.
Yeah.
Denver might be the second-place team now, so they don't even have a real competitor in their division. So they're going to win that. So it's just a matter of where do they play their games. And I'm telling you, Baltimore must be psyched with that outcome last night.
Yep.
Because them getting home field advantage.
Oh, I told you that. Legit home field, too. I mean, that's a huge win if they can stay in that one spot.
They're streaking towards it. Deshaun's not coming back. Burrow's not coming back. Pittsburgh just fired their offensive coordinator today, which actually might help them.
Might help them, yeah.
I read this. Everybody keeps making a big deal of this because it is a big deal. This is the first time since 1941 that they fired anybody off of a coaching staff in season.
That's crazy.
1941. That's as steady as it gets.
You had to read that in the paper the next day. Hear about it.
They've only had 3 head coaches since the 60s.
Yeah. It's crazy.
We had 3 this decade.
We're about to be on 3rd in 6 years, 5 years.
About.
Yeah.
No. Gruden was there for how long? How long was he there for?
I just meant in terms of the shortest timeline. Gruden coached in 2019, then Rivera, and we'll see what happens. But most likely there'll be a new one for 2024.
Correct.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. Really 4 if you want to count the interim.
The Giants, it depends what they do with Dayball.
They've had one every 2 years.
Could be on their 5th in 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
5th in 8 years. They have had 3 head coaches since the 60s. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin.
That's it.
They're also with a winning record, and I saw the press conference with him because his press conferences are amazing to watch. They're half Samuel L. Jackson Pulp Fiction, and they're half like Football Genius, all in one.
Absolutely.
Like, and you just his delivery and his facial expressions are just amazing, and he's just basically like, guys, we just had to do this. Like, it almost felt like this is the first time, like, in the modern media cycle, we have been pressured to do this.
Sure. Well,
we wouldn't do this ever, but because everybody who has a microphone or a phone or TikTok is screaming at us that this guy's the worst, that we felt like for once in our existence, we had no choice but to do this.
Well, and not only that, the players finally started spouting off. Yes. When has that happened there?
Yes.
That's never happened there for anything.
It was 3 weeks ago when Pickens said something about it.
Yeah.
Did you hear what his response was to that? He said, because they were like, are you concerned about, your star receiver complaining about the offense? And he goes, that's a pebble in my shoe.
Yeah. He's the best. He's the best.
What a line. Just like right on cue.
Yeah,
like there's no way he planned to say that.
Right.
He just said it. That's what came out of his mouth. I love that dude. He's amazing.
But yeah, when you have your players starting to say stuff there, that's a place where players don't revolt. So
no. They got mad when they do anything. They get mad at you for the Patriots are the same way.
Yeah.
Like that's what Belichick was. Like, you want to complain inside here. Don't complain to them. What are you complaining to them about? Like, it doesn't bring us any good. Like, you're allowed to argue with me. You just do it privately. Same thing Tomlin's been doing. Like, think about Antonio Brown. How long he played there.
Oh, yeah. No. That's
how much did they put up with him that nobody ever knew about?
No,
because he didn't go crazy after he left.
No, that's the joke, is that as time goes by, like, hey, remember when Antonio Brown was there and he was in check? Like, that's been the joke.
And he was having 110 catches a year.
Right.
And he was the best receiver in the game every single year. Like, what was happening behind closed doors there that nobody knew about? It only got opened up when he started doing videos from the locker room.
That's right. He was the first one to go live.
They got mad at him because they're like, don't do that. But even what he did they were just mad because he showed what was going on inside the locker room. They weren't mad at him for doing anything like that we know about after the fact, like all the other stuff. But what did they know about him then that they covered up? Feels like the first time. This is an age-old franchise that believes, everything in this room stays in this room, that they let pressure get to them for once.
Yeah, for sure. No, here's the thing, too. The public pressure was unlike anything I had seen there to fire him. When the Penguins had their opening night, the crowd was chanting, "Fire Canada, fire Canada."
Wow.
When your football team is permeating through a hockey game, and I know those are their two major ones that are playing right now. Like that's still pretty crazy that at a hockey game a Fire Matt Canada chant broke out.
Yeah, so we had that
was a month and a half ago. So.
The Dorsey firing to me was just a message to the Bills. It really had probably little to do with him, and more just like, wake up, guys.
Probably not going to change the offense.
Yeah, wake up, guys. This one was the players hate this. And all they're hearing from every fan is, like, if he had a poll of like whatever, where would he poll right now? It'd be the worst offensive coordinator of all time. Like 3% support. Be like one guy going, guys, this design was good. Everyone else is going, he's the worst person on earth.
Orlovsky had a good take on him that I liked. Not today, actually. It was yesterday, where he said he calls plays. He doesn't call an offense. And I was like, ooh, that is in today's day and age. In today's day and age, that's bad. Because
they're saying bad design.
Well, they're saying there's no cohesion because, like, in today's day and age, like, you can see Bieniemy does it too. They call certain things to get you later on down the line. I mean, that's the modern NFL, and it sounds like they were not doing that at all. So when Orlovsky says that out loud, and then he's fired the next day. Yeah, that sounds about right.
This also is a shot back to the players. Like, okay,
yeah, let's see what you got now. Yeah,
all right, you can stop complaining about him now, right?
Right.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. All right, let me take a quick break. I want to play what Tom Brady said to Stephen A. Smith, where he basically called the NFL mediocre. Brady Bunch Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. I wonder what the reaction to Travis Kelce fumbling, a couple drops, Kansas City losing. They're going to start yelling about Taylor Swift and relationships.
There had to be a caller right out of the gate today in Kansas City.
Whoever Kansas City's toothpick is calling it and is very upset.
Toothpick has measured takes. This is a different one. But
I'll have to ask Jack, who is the unhinged caller?
The unhinged caller.
Who's the weekly unhinged caller?
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is definitely, somebody had to have mentioned it today.
Had to have. I mean, at some point, this is what you walk into when you have something like this. In the middle of the season, a high-profile thing like this. Like, I remember, what was it, during the bye week of the playoffs when Tony Romo was dating Jessica Simpson
and
went to Cabo or something like that. It's something like Mexico. They went somewhere to a beach, and everyone freaked out.
That one was dumb, though.
It was dumb. Him and Witten went with Jessica Simpson and some other woman. And
the worst one is still the Giants one.
The boat party?
Yeah.
They haven't been the same since.
Yeah, because literally their record went right in the you-know-what.
They haven't been the same since.
Yeah, they've
that
never
picture's
recovered.
Amazing, too.
It's the best.
It's a great picture.
I would have that picture posted on a wall.
If I was a Giants fan, I would have that blown up and up on the wall. It's a piece of art, that picture. But
so that's the worst one.
Like that's the. Not that I would dissuade anybody from dating Taylor Swift, get while the getting's good. But, this is the danger of this is going to get lumped into your failures, that they're going to blame her and your relationship and what you're thinking about all the time as a problem. Like when you do go to South America to see the Eras Tour during the bye week, and then you come back and you fumble the ball in the red zone against the Eagles, people are going to be a little upset about that change of lyrics that she had.
Here's the thing, though. He's so elite. How do you really pin it on one game? Now, if it happens again next week, we got a little smoke. We got a little smoke coming out of the fire there.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose next week and he has a bad game, then people are going to start blaming Taylor Swift for the downfall of the Chiefs.
This week, Monday night, big game. It was raining out. I don't know. People make mistakes. I'm not willing to do it yet.
Okay, so now they're going at Raiders.
Okay, that should be a win.
Should be.
Should be.
If he's terrible and somehow they lose, cancel the Eras Tour at the Sphere.
Oh, God. They're not doing the Eras Tour at the Sphere. Get out of here.
Why not?
Too small.
Oh. But you could charge people $50,000 to see it.
People are already paying that on Ticketmaster anyways for the big shows.
Yeah, what are the prices going for these days?
Same thing.
Still
ridiculous prices.
$3,000-$4,000 a year, even now?
For the good seats, yeah. I think in Europe it is a little bit cheaper, but yeah.
I did see one other thing too, where Travis Kelce admitted, and some guys just say this, that he's had a lot of surgeries. He's had like 10 surgeries. Yeah. He is in his mid-30s. I think this is Jason Kelce's last year. I'm getting the. He almost retired last year.
Did you hear Troy and Buck talk about him last night?
What?
They were like
that they know it's happening?
No. They were like, if I would have to, I think Troy said out loud, if I'm the Eagles, I'd be approaching him right now to come back next year because we were watching the film and he looks elite still.
So, all right. God, am I going to be in a weird spot to actually counter Troy Aikman? Early in the season, I did not see that at all.
Okay.
Actually, early in the season, and we played them early in the season, their line was definitively not as formidable as it has been. So it's hard to. You'll recall.
Has he been on a good stretch this last month? I haven't really watched.
I'd have to really watch again because once we got past playing them, I haven't. Yeah. I watched them. I watched them last night, but I don't watch them like
that. Yeah.
And honestly, he didn't look the same to me early in the season. And maybe it's kicked into gear.
Because he had a play yesterday where they showed the replay where Hurts was trying to change the play, go one way, and Kelce is allowed to challenge him and say no.
Oh.
And then they had to snap the ball, and Kelce pulled, and the pull was elite. I mean, it was like a guard pull, essentially. So.
Well, maybe it is. I mentioned, I think, early in the season, I didn't see it with him, actually. Not the same. It was just not the same. Maybe it has changed in recent weeks.
Maybe.
I don't want to argue with Troy Aikman. That seems like a bad road for me to go down. But that was not my point of view on him early in the year at all. In fact, it felt like, and he almost retired last year. It's not he only signed a 1-year deal. He almost retired.
Yeah. I mean, it could be one of those situations, too, where maybe they're thinking if he's he's still the best option, that you're not going to get somebody that's better than him.
Ooh, I don't think you will.
Yeah.
It's a Hall of Fame center.
Right.
So you won't. So I heard Travis Kelce say similar things like, I've been hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I've had 10 surgeries. He said things like, I've thought about retirement a lot. Oh, I wonder if they both go out the door at the same time together. There's an interesting one. They'd go into the Hall of Fame together.
Yeah. I mean, that
would be incredible. They would go into the Hall of Fame together if they retire in the same year. Now, Jason Kelce signed a 1-year deal purposefully. They would have given him more because he probably was like, I'll do this one more time and we'll see. Travis Kelce still has a few years left on his deal.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know if he's going to walk away from that. But, considering they are very cognizant of their position and how they're framed and all that stuff, I don't know. Maybe they think of that as, especially if the Chiefs ended up winning again or something like that. Or I don't know. Maybe they go out together and they go in the Hall of Fame together.
I mean, that's
because they're both going. I mean, they're both first ballot Hall of Famers to me. Like, not even close. Jason Kelce might be the best center it's ever played. And Travis Kelce's got the most prolific numbers of any tight end ever.
Right.
He won't have most yards per game.
Yeah.
He won't have most yards, I think. I think that's Antonio Gates. But he's right up there, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, the multiple Super Bowl champion, was the best weapon on that team for a number of years. He's going to go in.
I wonder, too, just to bring in the Taylor Swift thing, if this is a legitimate thing, he could also be going, what do I need to be playing football anymore for?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if this is serious, because no one thought it was.
Right.
If this is serious, I don't know. Maybe
he's like, I'm making a lot of money. Nothing compared to what she's doing now.
It's like the opposite of Brady.
Yes.
Where Brady's like, I'm going to make the biggest supermodel in the world a housewife. And she's like, I'm going to make the best tight end in the world a roadie. Watch this.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me play Tom Brady, speaking of. He went on with Stephen A. Smith, and he had a couple of things to say, but I thought this was the most interesting thing, which was he basically said, and he hadn't been out that long, that the NFL is a pile of mediocrity. So listen to this.
I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. Yeah. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past.
Why not? Why not?
I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. The rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game. Mm-hmm. So I just think the product, in my opinion, is less than what it's been. I look at a lot of players like Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison and Ronnie Lott, and guys that impacted the game in a certain way, and every hit they would have made would have been a penalty. You hear coaches complaining about their own player being tackled, and not necessarily, why don't they talk to their player about how to protect himself? We used to work on the fundamentals of those things all the time. Now they're trying to be regulated all the time. Offensive players need to protect themselves. It's not up to a defensive player to protect the offensive player. A defensive player needs to protect himself. I didn't throw the ball to certain areas because I was afraid players were going to get knocked out. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. Wow. I didn't throw it to the middle when I played Ray Lewis because you knock him out of the game, and I couldn't afford to lose a good player.
Okay. He said the rules. I think he meant two things by this. One, the rules are different with, he's right. Like some of these big hits that some of these players he's talking about, you can't do that anymore.
Right.
Like this Deion Jackson guy, everyone's going, he's dirty. Right? Mm-hmm. Because he is in this day and age. That's the way those guys used to play, and we're allowed to play that way. But the other rule that I think he's referring to, and I've been railing on this for a while too, and I'm with him on this. What the players wanted in the collective bargaining agreement was less practice time.
Yeah.
And they got it.
Right.
And less padded practices. And the first week of training camp is a joke now. It's just a conditioning drill.
Right,
You can't put on, you literally are not allowed to put on pads. So you can't practice football. Mm-hmm. In the first week of training camp, you can't practice football. You could be out there, you could put on a uniform, you could put on a helmet, you could run around, you can't hit each other.
Right.
In training camp.
Yeah.
The off-season's a joke. Like the amount of time that they are literally have to show up for that is something like 5 to 7 days.
Right.
And then anyone else, so we're always have this every year. It's this, well, it's voluntary. You're right. Mm-hmm. It is. Do you want to get better or not? You don't want to practice with your team? Like you just want to go work out with your guys?
Right.
Like, how does this make anybody better? But everybody does it. Like, I'm with him on this. Like, I think there's a few things here. Like, I agree. I think you just need to adjust to the rules. They got destroyed over head injury.
That's right.
So they had to change those rules, right? And I'm not against that. Like, the game is not as rough or as quote unquote dirty as it used to be.
Yep.
Good. Like, I don't want to see guys get knocked out anymore. Like, I agree. Learn how to tackle differently, right? You're still allowed to hit a guy hard. You just have to not use your helmet when you do it. That's all.
Right.
Realistically, that's all really they're telling you to do. You can't launch yourself. You can't point your helmet at somebody. You can't use it as a weapon. I don't actually think that's that big of a deal. Learn how to tackle differently.
Sure.
Rule number 2, though, is, and this is what they gave them, and I was made fun of it when they did it because I'm like, that's what you wanted was less practice. You didn't want more money. You didn't want more health insurance. You didn't want more all this other stuff. You agreed to all these deals for less practice. Well, they're going to give that to you, and the only people that's going to hurt is you and your coaches. Mm-hmm. It'll hurt you all collectively. But this is the problem. This is their problem that the NBA has. The NBA's is more profound because it's in the regular season where they allowed players to sit out willingly, like just allowed them to do it to the point where every team started doing it. And it's like against the best interest of the game. It's against the best interest of your team. It's against the best interest of the fans. And Adam Silver's now trying to get his hands back around it because it affected their ratings. Because people were like, well, the regular season doesn't mean anything because they don't care about it. Right. They just sit. The NFL's problem is nobody cares whether they practice a lot or not. But if the point is to have the best product you could have starting in September, well, you kind of need to practice together. And because they don't, therein lies what I think is what he's talking about. And I agree with him. I don't understand why the players, I understand why the players wanted it, and I understand why the owners gave it to them, because they're like, give them that instead of more money.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
that's why they did it.
I was going to say, that's what it boils down to everything.
Nobody is paying attention to practice. Like,
that's right.
They're not televised. We make no money on it, so we don't care. If you want to practice less, fine. That's the give back we give you. We're not losing anything over that, other than where we are now, which is there is a level of mediocre football that is across the board, and I think that has a lot to do with it. These teams aren't as refined as they used to be. They don't spend enough time together. They don't practice enough, and they spend parts of training camp now. You can't have two-a-day practices anymore. You can't. It's not as hard as it used to be, and you can't even put on pads for the majority of it in the beginning of it. You can put on pads for 3 days before you play your first preseason game. That's ridiculous. The preseason games are treated as a joke. Right? Like one of them, maybe your guys play 2-3 quarters. The rest of them, nobody plays. Now we're getting to the point where the stars don't play at all.
That's right. Yep.
Lamar hasn't played one in 5 years because he doesn't need to.
That's right. Yeah.
And they don't want to get him hurt. And I don't blame them because they're not worth anything. And the other one, too, is, and I think this needs to be pointed out as well, and this has been going on for a while, but it's gotten exacerbated. The salary cap produces a parity of which it is hard to keep a team together.
Correct. Yeah.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, right.
If you get a good enough team, it's typically because you had a couple of stars and a bunch of guys on rookie contracts. And then once you have to start paying them, then you run into a problem.
Yep.
And then you have to make choices.
Right.
And the Eagles are going to run into this. Like, they are already running into it. They had a bunch of guys off their defense because they had to pay Jalen Hurts. They already paid A.J. Brown. They're going to want to pay Devontae Smith. They already paid Kelsey. They'd already paid Goddard. They had to make a choice.
Right.
And it's going to get worse because Hurts' contract isn't going to get better. A.J. Brown's isn't going to get better. They got to keep making these choices. Well, so that means their window is short unless they draft really, 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 really well. And then everybody else, but that's not just their problem. That's everybody's problem. You can't keep a team together like you used to anymore.
There's two.
And they're not practicing with one another.
Right. There's two solutions to that, by the way. You could reduce preseason and add practices. You could tell the players.
Which, honestly, I got to tell you, like, if you these joint practices,
yep.
If you televise them, and you put them in a stadium, people will show up to them.
They used to do it here.
They're controlled.
Yeah.
I would rather go to that than the preseason game, frankly. Correct. One, because the coaches are on board. They actually play one another.
Right.
Their starters go because it's in a controlled environment.
Right.
They go against one another for real. We got way more out of those 2 days against the Ravens than we did in any of those preseason games. I think everybody would admit it. And what? NFL Network and Amazon, and they won't show that? Of course they will.
Yeah.
So, like, the preseason games, do you want to have one because you want to put
do a dress rehearsal. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Or let's just say let's just move it down to 2. You got one that's a dress rehearsal because it's a real game. Get dressed, go out there, run some plays. And then the second one is, listen, we do have to make some choices about young guys. We need to put them out there to play one another.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that third week now, because we're down to 3, thank God. Now that we're down to 3, joint practices across the board.
Okay. Yeah.
It would be better. You could put them in stadiums. Why can't you?
Right.
You could sell tickets to them. It could be part of the season ticket package. And honestly, the fans would get way more out of it.
Yeah,
way more out of it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the second one was. Because he was talking about mediocrity. I can't remember.
Yeah. He's not wrong. He's right. It is more mediocre.
Oh, I know. Sorry. It is something I've largely always hit the table for. What you were getting at, where we're getting in these weird salary cap situations where if you have good players, you have to make choices. I've long since thought, if you draft a player, and if you trade that player still on a rookie contract, it doesn't count. It goes away. But if you draft a player and you are looking to re-sign them, you get some kind of relief for doing that.
Like the bird rule in the NBA, where if it's your guy, you can, if you choose to, you could go above and beyond the cap to keep
or
give him a premium,
or you get cap relief because of it. Like you could still pay. Like you could still
pay.
The
NBA has a number where a guy goes, "This is how much you can make," and they allow you to go over. Because it's your guy. That's what's not. The NFL doesn't have set prices for players. The markets get reset.
They don't. But let's say, just for example, when Mahomes signed that $50 million a year thing, you're still paying him $50 million, but it only counts for $42 million on your cap.
Oh, so you give him like a percentage off whatever the deal is.
Yes, because I think it's BS.
So it stays within a. So this wouldn't allow you to give Mahomes $90 million.
No,
it's still prohibitive to you.
Correct.
But if you got like a 10 to 15% rebate for keeping your own guy, if you drafted him.
Exactly. Like I've learned.
And then an owner could decide, because you will be going over the cap. So then you make the decision, do you want to invest that amount of money?
Correct. But what it also does, though, is it makes the choices a little bit easier to say, hey, if we draft well, remember, we get this guy for this much against the cap. We're still paying him. Yeah. But we're getting it.
You're still going to get market value.
Yes.
Like you're getting the $26 million, but we're only paying 23 on our cap because you were our guy.
Like imagine
you do free agency, you get none of that relief.
Correct. Like imagine right now,
even beyond, right? Even if you got a free agent and went second contract, you still wouldn't give relief.
No, exactly.
It has to be a drafted player.
Yeah, it has to be a drafted player.
Or acquired player.
No, I even said that. Like if they were to trade for a player on the rookie contract, you would not. It would go away.
Like undrafted rookie though would count the same.
Yeah, of course.
As long as you're the original team that acquired him in the first place.
Exactly, because I don't want to see, because this is what would happen. What would happen is you'd get teams that would circumvent that by going, oh, we're going to trade you, I don't know, give me let's use us for example. Oh, we're going to trade you Montez Sweat, but that contract's worth a little bit more because you get to sign him for less money on the cap. Like you know that would happen right away. So it has to be with the original team that drafted you, minus like a draft day trade. I think that's a little bit different. I think there's
just pick for pick.
Yeah, but like there has to be an exception there. But like what I'm getting at is I think that's a way to reward the teams that draft really well. Like I always find it really weird
and I think it would be better for the league. I think we want to keep teams more together.
Yes. It's one thing that the NFL has.
It's good
lacked.
to have juggernauts. Right. It's not bad to have them.
Yeah.
We'll talk to ESPN's Todd Archer, covers the Cowboys for the worldwide leader, in about 30 minutes or so. Get his thoughts on the game in 2 days, kind of where the Cowboys are, maybe future of Dak. And what I've always wanted to ask in the last couple of years, I keep forgetting to ask of the Cowboys reporters, is Dak Prescott bothered by how much Stephen A. Smith makes fun of him and them? And that might be a tough question to ask
because
a coworker.
Yeah, he's employed by ESPN.
But I'm sure it must have come up at some point. Do you understand why they come after you guys so much?
If I had to guess,
the time?
It probably just comes with the territory for putting on that uniform.
Yes.
It's just another layer of things you need to deal with.
I didn't play this clip last week. I just didn't get around to it, but I sent it to you. And it was a clip of Stephen A. talking about why Josh Allen doesn't get that type of hate.
Yeah.
And why Dak does. And the reason was, don't say white guy. The reason is he said, nobody cares. He said, it doesn't move the needle. If we go after Josh Allen and the Bills, nobody tunes in more for that.
Yeah.
But when we do go after Dak or the Cowboys, they do. So he's just like, I'm giving the audience what they want. If the Cowboys do well, then we'll talk about the Cowboys doing well.
Yeah.
If they don't, I put on my hat and laugh at them. And it's what you guys want. And for me to spend a long period of time talking about why Josh Allen is or is not his own worst enemy, you all have told me you don't care.
Right.
So he's just like, I'm giving you what you want.
I'm talking about what moves the needle, essentially.
Correct.
Here's the thing, though. It is a little more cut and dry. Like, Josh Allen, we love him running the quarterback or running the football. We love him with most of his passes. His interceptions are just dumb. All of them.
Yes.
Like he never throws the unclutch interception at the last second of a game or whatever. He's just careless with the football.
Yes, he is.
Dak, when he
makes crazy plays.
Yes, you're right. But when Dak makes the mistake, it tends to be in those situations that are in the playoffs. They need to win a game in the last minute. But
the Bills are 6-5 because Allen's careless with the ball.
Sure.
And no other real reason.
Right.
That's why they're 6-5. That's why they fired their offensive coordinator. But all Stephen A is basically saying is, yeah, it's a big part of the story of the NFL season because they're a contender and he's an elite quarterback.
Yeah.
But you, the viewer, don't care.
Right.
You don't care.
I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not. So, I mean, it is hard to understand why.
Right.
Why doesn't anyone care? But, nobody does. And that's the reality of it. I think, Burrow's ups and downs probably move the needle a little bit more. Lamar's definitely does.
For sure. Yep.
Definitely does. Dak's definitely does. Mahomes definitely does. But I guess his just doesn't. Herbert's too. They're not going after, they go after this coach a little bit. But again, similarly, they don't crush this guy every single week, even though if that was Mike McCarthy and his defense, they would go after him like crazy because he's the Cowboys coach. They don't go after this guy. They don't spend a lot of time. They'll bring it up and be like, well, they were disappointing again, but he doesn't put on a lightning bolt, on some visor and laugh, for 2 minutes because you want to know why? Because it doesn't move the needle.
Well, the difference, though, I'd say actually between all three that you just mentioned, and you can put Allen and Herbert in the same category, is those two teams don't make rash decisions. They don't just cut bait with somebody like that. They don't just make a change to make a change. They're a little more calm when it comes to their decisions. But you and I both know Jerry, whatever he's feeling, he might do. And so maybe people also criticize Dak more, knowing kind of full well, maybe this is the offseason where Jerry's done. And then the Cowboys getting a new quarterback is a massive storyline. So I think there's a part of that too.
I'd love to ask some of the players, especially ones who've played for Dallas and somebody else who's good.
Yeah.
Right, who's good. You'd have to find that person. Who's been on two good teams, including Dallas. And do you like or not like being part of a team that gets that kind of attention?
Right.
Jalen Hurts actually gets it too. He gets a good amount of praise and criticism. He loses so rarely that it's kind of hard to criticize the guy.
He's also not a first-round pick.
Games
and that always comes with that territory.
Neither was Dak.
Right.
Neither was Dak.
Right.
Dak gets crushed.
Right.
Crushed. And, I think Russ gets crushed because of his personality. Dak doesn't get crushed because of that. He gets crushed because if he makes a mistake. His mistakes are amplified differently than anybody else. But I'd love to hear from players who've played for a really good team and a good Cowboys team to get their perspective on what is that like when you're on a really good team and you lose and people don't come at you with howitzers. But if you're on Dallas and you do it, they just come at you.
One player right now that I think you could ask is Brandon Cooks.
Because he played on
New Orleans 14, 15, 16.
So and they were really good.
Then he was on New England in 2017. So he played with Brady.
Okay. So he would know.
Then he played on the Rams 18, 19.
Is that their Super Bowl year?
So that was...
Is that one of their Super Bowl years?
Was that 20?
No, 20 was Stafford. So this is the year before.
Okay. Then he went to Houston. Totally different. But that's 2021.
No. Sorry, 21 was Stafford, right? I'm confused now. 21 was Stafford.
That sounds right.
Because 2020 was pandemic year, and Burrow was a rookie and got hurt against us, so he didn't play in the Super Bowl that year. It was his second year he played in the Super Bowl, so that's the Rams Super Bowl was 21.
The 21 season.
21
it would have happened
season.
in 2022 because 21 was Brady Mahomes.
Yes, the 2022 Super Bowl.
Yes.
We've done this with Jason Wright.
Yeah.
It's the 2021 NFL season where the Rams won the Super Bowl.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and beat Burrow because he got hurt, I remember.
So he got
hurt his rookie year here when he played us.
Then he had 3 years with the Texans, so we went complete opposite that way, and now he's on the Cowboys. I think that's...
I'd also like to ask him why he's been on so many teams.
Everyone always wants him. He's always traded, too.
Yeah, it's not for a lack of interest. But nobody wants to keep him for some weird reason.
He's my candidate to blow up on Thursday, by the way.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Who's covering him?
Who's covering any of them? Have you seen the yards against that we have? I was rewatching the game last night. And I don't hear the broadcast. And Kenny Albert, somebody said when DeVito was 6 of 7 for whatever he had, 3 of the 6 passes were for over 20 yards.
Oh, God.
And I heard him say it, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. We've given up more explosive plays on the ground and through the air than anybody, and by a lot. There is some stat somebody put out on Forbes that was like, he's been one of the most targeted corners where the ball goes at least 15 yards in the air.
Yeah.
And the completion percentage is really... really bad.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, really bad.
Good to hear that.
Bad, like worse than you'd hope. I'd like to just be like, he's a rookie and leave it at that. And then let's just see where we are. Which kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about here. Mm-hmm. What in the world happened to the defense this year? Because it's not, I said this after Seattle, I'm like, it's not going to turn around. Like, I don't have a belief that there's going to be a gear shifted here where it's going to turn around. We have now had 3 weeks in a row against struggling offenses of different varieties. One with Mac Jones, who they had throw the ball very quickly, because they were scared of him extending plays and turnovers, but they ran tempo anyway against us.
Yep.
We had the Seattle offense, which probably is a candidate to rectify itself and get better, because I don't think Gino's just having a bad stretch here, I think. But they have really good players and really good skill position guys. And if they figure it out, they'll probably be in the playoffs. And they might even be formidable with the players that they have. They're just in a bad stretch, but they were in a bad stretch when they played us. And they went tempo on us and scored 29 points. And then this past week, which is, you'd think, just logically, that they would not want to speed up the game, but they did. And they brought out an undrafted rookie free agent with no offensive line and ran tempo on us because, as they admitted after the game, that we're not good when we can't substitute and we don't disguise very well and we lose our people in coverage, all of which is plain as day. But to hear them say it was very damning.
Right.
It was quite an indictment of what's going on. So in light of all of that, what happened? How did this go so wrong? Because I'll tell you what, in August, you could not have convinced me that they'd be the worst scoring defense in the league. If you told me they ended up being average, not great, I would have been like, all right, fine.
Right.
Probably a lot of reasons why. But to be the worst defense in the league, I didn't see that coming.
I mean, considering what they're saying about disguising the coverages, it sounds like that was messed with. And who was the DB coach that we've already gotten?
Chris Harris.
So
his name kept popping up.
Right. And it sounds like that must be a part of it. It's got to have something to do with it, because it's the one thing, as you said, it keeps popping up, and Cam Curl's dad is mentioning him in tweets and whatever. Like, that's got to be a major part of it. Now, that doesn't.
Other side, too,
right.
Matsko not being there, all of a sudden the offensive line isn't as effective as it was. Matsko kept it together with all those injuries.
Right.
This year, they actually don't have the excuse of injuries.
Of course.
The play's just not very good.
With Harris, though, that still shouldn't pull apart the entire defense, though.
Correct.
Clearly, though, it's a major point. I think that, paired with the defensive line not playing up to par, has opened up the field in a way we haven't seen in the past 3 or 4 years.
For me, so the running thing for me in watching was, I just think your best unit where your money is spent and your best players kind of have to lead the way. If they're not, it's not that Allen or Payne have been bad. They just haven't been as impactful as they've been in recent years. They're not making the type of plays that I'm accustomed to seeing them making. They would blow up drives. They did against the Giants. It didn't matter, which was amazing. but like they hadn't really done a lot of it, not, or at least not to the clip that I was accustomed to. There was a stat on Payne that was like he hadn't touched a quarterback in 7 weeks, and I was shocked, when I saw it. But like then thinking about it, I'm like, well, it just validates what I think I've seen, which is he's just not as impactful. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. Okay, so those guys aren't performing like they did. Is that a schematic problem? Is that them? I don't know. The ends were both fine. Chase had good moments. Montez had good moments. Neither were impacting games significantly. Now that they're gone, the pass rush success rate actually nosedived. So the lack of the high-end talent, which we lost by trading them away, is manifesting very quickly. So the whole theory of, well, they'll just play better as a coordinated unit because they did so without Chase.
I never bought into that.
That didn't happen, and that's now incorrect. And now they've got to replace these guys.
Right.
Good luck with that without using at least one of these 3 high picks to do so. Edge rusher is going to be one of them. Sure. No doubt about it now, right? Linebacker play wasn't addressed properly. Everyone who gets mad about Cody Barton, who, by the way, just got activated, is going to be probably playing now on Thursday, so that's good news that they get him back. But everyone who tried to turn him into Devin White, he's a $2 million a year middle linebacker. Yeah. They tried to plug a hole that they needed with an affordable player who was available. You get what you pay for here.
Sure.
Right? You get what you pay for.
Right, but I think that's the overarching factor here is, I think what everyone has hated is that they went bargain bin shopping for a clear weak position, and then the other position that was weak, they went and put all of their eggs into a rookie cornerback's basket, which is risky in and of itself. Like,
it is. They were hoping they got Sauce Gardner. That's what they were hoping they got.
Did it with, honestly, they did it with Jamin Davis too, while putting all the eggs in that basket too, hoping he would be their new middle linebacker. That didn't happen. Now they shifted him.
He's a little bit different because the line in front of him should help him.
Sure.
Because they're supposed to be so dominant that even if he's on a learning curve, if he makes mistakes, they might make up for it and you may not see them. When they're not performing particularly well, it's tough. And it's funny in rewatching him the other day and really thinking about where his progress is. Like, actually moving forward, he's become a very effective playmaker. Like, when he reads and reacts and hits holes, he's really fast. He's a great athlete. He's made a lot of plays, including the other day. It's when he's in coverage that he is in trouble.
Yeah.
It's not a week that goes by that they don't want to run a wheel route on him and he can't cover the receiver, or he gets caught lagging behind a tight end, or God forbid they put a speed receiver coming across the middle. He can't recognize it fast enough and doesn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
But when moving forward, you see it go, he's actually become a very good, apt playmaker for them. The problem is he's not a well-rounded defensive player for them. Right?
Exactly.
That's the issue now. Then there's the secondary, of which I did not think was a weakness at all, which is why I was so bullish about this. They're very long. They've got good youth. I thought the combo of Curl and Forrest, and maybe Forrest being out's a big deal. I'm not totally sure. Maybe it is, because I've kind of come around to seeing Percy Butler play a lot and go, he's very active. He makes a few good plays, and he's a liability on ones where he's the kind of the last line of defense. There are too many times that he's either missing the tackle and a big play gets popped off on him. So he's not reliable to make the big stop when you need him to make the big stop. Forrest, that wasn't the problem with him. He's not. On the last line of defense, he was kind of always there. So some of these big plays in the last 4 or 5 weeks may have been his absence. Maybe. It doesn't change the fact that their pass rush is weak. Their run defense at times becomes a sieve, which is a shock. And then they get confused on the back end.
Yes.
Just over and over and over, they get confused. And this goes back to now seeing bad offenses run tempo against them says to me that they know that over a period of time, they will catch them messing up their coverages, not knowing who their men are, and eventually they're going to hit them for big plays. And it's happened over and over and over. And that's hard to watch, hard to take, and hard to understand. Because if you're going to sit there and paint to me that we have got this young team and all that, not really.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, you are playing young ends now, but you weren't at the beginning of the season. You had no intention of doing so. The only real new player that was going to see any real new playing time outside of Barton, but at least he's a veteran, is Forbes. He's the only one. Quan Martin was buried behind everybody else until Forrest got hurt. He wasn't ever playing, and the story was, why'd you draft a guy who was never going to play? Not this year.
Right.
So
exactly. Well, and all this also factors into what I've hated about this coaching staff is they are far too slow to make changes or just vary the formula up. And what I've seen on this defense is they don't have anywhere else to go. Their players are their players. You can't fix communication issues by swapping players in and out. So that's another problem. But it's the same thing with Forbes, too. Like, look at Forbes. They benched him after A.J. Brown burned him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you waited for one of the best wide receivers in the league to burn your rookie cornerback, and that's your answer, is to swapping him out? Like, no, that's not the way you should be doing things.
Yeah. I'm surprised. But now, like, okay, it's easy to blame the players, especially like on things like missed tackles, missed assignments. That's on them. I mean, you got to execute.
I mean, the communication thing has happened in the past, and they've figured it out. But why are they not figuring it out now is a legitimate question.
The hard part to understand.
Not to mention, remember, Jack knocked them for not showing up to off-season workouts and crap. They showed up this off-season, so that's what you're bitching about.
That was the
What's
thing.
wrong with it now?
Off the second year, where they had a really down year and had a bad rating, he said, we need everybody to show up here because the communication is key. They did. And last year, look what happened. That was proof of we wanted everybody here. We had a really good offseason. He asked them to follow through again. They did. And then what happened this year?
Right.
It's gone completely sideways on them. And like, it's just so hard to sit here and look at this and go, I see some of the things that they talk about with the players messing this up, messing that up. But at some point, when you have in week 12 communication error after communication error with players who've been here, many of which for all 4 years of your program, when's that on you?
Right, exactly.
And I can't believe the Chris Harris thing is this big of a deal, but I keep hearing his name popping up.
That's right, yeah.
So, for some reason, the secondary coach of this team was an integral part of their success last year. Him not being here, it's very telling. Like, all of a sudden, all these breakdowns on the back end, they don't have the guy that apparently kept them together.
Sure. Here's the thing that I'll complain about, though, at least when it comes to the players. This, if it's true, and that Harris was that big of a deal, will be the second time that they haven't really complained about him, but it'll be the second time a position coach is a source of the defense not playing as well as they should. Because they fired their defensive line coach in training camp. That wasn't this year. It was
last year.
Last year. See,
that was right before last year.
I can't keep it straight
They
anymore.
went through 2 years with Sam Mills. The players, for some reason, did not like working with him. And then eventually it broke in training camp.
Yes.
And Rivera, who doesn't like doing that, did it.
Yep.
And actually everything got better. Remember?
Sure.
Payne and Allen had ridiculous seasons last year.
Look where we're
Chase
at now.
barely played, but
look
Montez had a good year, not a great year, but a really good one.
Sure.
Yeah.
But look where we're at now. We need more from those guys, and we're not getting it from them.
That's the same group coaching them.
Correct. So what I'm getting at here, too, is I'm kind of sick of this because you're professionals. If you don't like your coach, fine, but you can't do this with everyone when it's not working out, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree. We're at the point where I can't believe we're at this point of the season, but we're in the autopsy part of the season now. And the story of I've been saying this for weeks. The story of the season is the defense. Like, the offense has the predictable problems I thought they would. I actually think Hal's performed better than I expected he would. Like, I was hoping he'd be good. I didn't expect the types of big numbers, clutch moments, all that stuff. You just don't know that until they get put in tested with it. He's actually been better than I would have expected. The offense being up and down, not knowing what they're good at, trying to figure it out on the fly. Yeah, year one with a young, inexperienced quarterback and a new offensive coordinator. Yeah, I expected all that. And I think we all knew that their offensive line was potentially a liability. I was hoping it would be average. It's been at times below average, and at times it's been kind of fine. The other day it was not against the Giants at all. I don't know what it is about what they do that confuses them, but it really confuses them. Hal was overthrowing passes early in the game. He is getting rid of the ball late. He's getting rid of the ball while he's getting hit. He's throwing into really bad spots. Kayvon Thibodeau does the same stunt 4 times. It works every single time. Like, what are they doing that is fooling them?
Right, yeah.
And I don't know what it is about that matchup, but it's fooling them, but it's been other weeks as well. All of that, to me, was totally predictable. Like, the offense, I said this from the get-go. I go, we got to get to the midpoint of the season to figure out what is this offense? What are they good at? What will they be good at? And hopefully it turns a corner And I'm not sure that they even know the answers to that, but there have been plenty of weeks where they've scored, put up a lot of yards, and been more effective. Maybe not in a consistent manner, but been more effective. They've progressed outside of the offensive line, and this is a roster structure problem. They didn't give them a bunch of Pro Bowlers up there.
Right.
They have very little draft capital and very little money spent on one of the most important groups. And they don't have one guy that they can look at and rely on and go, when he is a good year, he's a Pro Bowler.
Right, exactly.
They don't have somebody like that.
They don't.
So that was always predictable. The defense is the one, is what I've said all along. That's the story of the season.
Right.
That's what doesn't make sense to me. They have paid Allen and Payne. They have picked up the fifth-year option, so they're paying Sweat. They've got Chase Young on year 4. He's got this high-end talent. Hopefully he's back to what he was. They're gone now, but partially because of results that they had, that their defensive line wasn't dominating games. Their linebackers, weren't addressed properly, but Jamin Davis is a first-round pick. And then I always looked at like the linebackers as, if they are a liability, they are, but the defensive line should be so good and the back end should be so fast and playmaking that I think it will mask the problems. Well, that hasn't happened. And the back end has been a sieve. And it seems like it's all communication errors.
Yeah. Right.
Like someone was telling me the other day, that Slayton touchdown where you see Kendall Fuller chasing him, that wasn't even his man.
Oh, man.
They're like, don't blame him, is what they said. Like, it wasn't his fault. Like, he made up for someone else. You figure out who that is. And I'm like, and I can't. So, and then when Hodgins is saying, we went up tempo on them on purpose.
Right.
Because we knew that eventually, if they don't substitute, they, one, get less twitchy, tired, and lose their man.
Great.
And the proof of it is every single week it's happening.
Yep.
And then the other part that really gets me, and this has happened numerous times, and I can't believe this is the case because the Rivera teams play hard, is that this is not a 60-minute team right now.
Yeah,
there seems to be a period of time in every game. It used to be it started at the beginning of the games, and then all of a sudden the team got better.
Regroup, yeah.
Not the last few weeks.
Yep.
It's at some point in the second half where it all kind of changes and they become kind of
reactionary. Is that maybe the word?
Like something bad happens and it's just like it falls apart for about a 10-minute period.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Terps a little bit. It does, where it's like for about 10 minutes, they all of a sudden are completely ineffective. And it's all a matter of how bad is it going to be in that period of time before they either fix it or don't. And this happened against the Giants. Like, it's funny. Like, when I rewatched last night, it was that Rodriguez turnover where their defense that was it for about a 10-minute period, which let the Giants walk down the field and eventually score the points that really were the difference in the game.
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch because I'm not accustomed to it, and I don't understand what happened. And maybe when it's all over, someone can, because I don't know what happened here.
Don't think there's an easy answer.
There isn't. All right, Todd Archer from ESPN next. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, we've got a holiday classic coming up. It is Washington and Dallas on Thanksgiving Day down in Arlington, Texas. And I'm pleased to welcome in Todd Archer, ESPN's Cowboys insider, to the show. Todd, a pleasure having you on once again. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No problem, Bram. How are we doing?
I'm doing good. All right, so this is every year for you guys. This is a specialty for us, especially when we get to play Dallas. Is it any different when it's a rival, when it's either us, the Eagles, Giants, something like that? Does it feel any different for Dallas, or is Thanksgiving always kind of special in its own way down there?
I think it's always kind of special, but I do think when it's Washington and Dallas, it is a little bit different. Even, last year I think was the first time they ever played the Giants on Thanksgiving. I don't know how many times they've played the Eagles on Thanksgiving. In fact, I'm trying to rack my brain of all the years I've covered them. They may have not played them on Thanksgiving, but certainly Washington and Dallas have played on Thanksgiving a number of times in the years I've covered them. And I do think there's something about a tradition that kind of brings out a little bit more in a holiday game, whether the Cowboys are 7-3 and the Commanders are 4-7, doesn't really matter. I think it adds a little something to everybody watching the game.
So, I'm looking through the schedule, and I've seen a lot of Dallas this year. They've won 40-0, 30-10, 38-3, 43-20. The last 2 weeks against the Giants and the Panthers, also blowouts. So, again, they're not taking this for granted after what they've seen from the Commanders the last couple of weeks?
They're saying all the right things. Let's put it that way, right? But it is notable. Like the 49-17 game against the Giants, honestly, I don't even know if it was that close. So the fact that what happened last week with New York winning in Washington it kind of blew my mind just because it looked like the Giants couldn't do anything, and then they come out and win the game. So that I think there is a human nature instinct that takes place with anybody, a professional athlete or whatever. But Micah Parsons is in the locker room saying today, like these guys are better than their record. They have a lot of good players over there, and all the Cowboys have to do is look back to the last game last year, Sam Howell's first start. The Cowboys lost. So, if you're looking for motivation, and this might be one of the games where if you're the Cowboys, you're looking for motivation, that's one thing you can point back to and say, the last time we saw this team, we lost to them, and we have to get it right. But they're playing at home. They've been a really good home team. They've won 13 straight at home now in the regular season. Outscored teams 160-50 this year in those home games, those blowouts that you mentioned. The Cowboys have certainly been a different team at home. But honestly, Bram, I still don't know if the Cowboys are that good of a team to be a Super Bowl team.
Well, it's the NFL. Most games are close. The amount of blowouts that they've been a part of and been on the right side of, I think is very telling about them. Like, how do they kind of characterize when they win? With the exception of the Chargers game, they win by multiple scores.
Yeah, and a big part of it is defensive touchdowns. Deron Bland has 4 pick sixes, tying an NFL record. They've scored on special teams with touchdowns. And the offense here lately, certainly since the San Francisco blowout on the bad side of it, has been much better. And this is, Dak's best stretch, I would say, since the start of 2021 before he suffered a calf injury when he was looking like an MVP candidate. They look like a good team. But when you look at who they've beaten, you still don't know if they're a good team because the 2 games that they've played against upper echelon teams has been San Francisco and Philly, and they lost both of them.
Yeah.
So, and if they want to be a contender in the East now, though, and make this race with Philly somehow still matter, they have to win Thursday. They have to win the following Thursday against Seattle, and you can say they're a good team, they're over 500 and all that. And then they get the Eagles again December 10th at AT&T Stadium. So that's a must-win. So the fact that they got these next 3 games at home, very much important for the Cowboys to win all 3, whether you win 38-3 or 3-2, it really doesn't matter.
Well, I guess what the schedule is, but the 7 wins are against all under 500 teams. Is that right? They have not beaten a team with a winning record yet? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, and the Chargers at the time, I don't think had a winning record, but everybody was still waiting for them to be a team you thought was going to be good, and I guess we're still waiting to figure out if they're going to be any good, or maybe this is just who they are. They're always going to be 9-8 every year or something.
So I was up in New England a couple weeks ago. We played early, and I watched the majority of the Cowboys-Eagles game, which, in my opinion, felt like they lost, not that they were beaten. Was that a tough one for them in the locker room to recover from?
Not to recover from, because they've outscored teams 82-27 in the last 2 games. But I think they left that game feeling strangely better about themselves, because I mentioned that San Francisco game. They weren't in that from the jump. Like that was a blowout of blowouts. Like among the worst games I've seen the Cowboys play in my 20 years covering the club. But the Philly game, they can point to 2, 3, 4 plays where literal inches made a difference in the outcome of that game. Dak steps out on a 2-point conversion. Luke Schoonmaker's tackled at the half-inch line and is overturned by replay. And there was another play earlier where they thought they had either a touchdown or a big play that went against them. So they came out of that Eagles game feeling pretty good, even though it was still a loss. When they face the Eagles here again, everybody's healthy, all that stuff. When they face the Eagles again, I don't think they're going to say, well, we have no chance to win this one. The Niners might say that, but against the Eagles, I think they feel confident that they match up well and they can exploit some of the Eagles' weaknesses.
Now that you're 10 games in, I think it's best to ask this question now, which is one of the big changes they made in the offseason was to remove Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, and Mike McCarthy, I believe, is still calling the plays. Is that right? I believe he took that back over. The scores look like that's going pretty well. Overall, what was your kind of expectation with him taking that job back over and how it's fared so far as you turn the corner in the season?
Yeah, I think you almost have to look at the first 5 games of the year as one thing, and then these last 5 as a completely different thing. It's really, so maybe it's the last 6 games. Since the San Francisco game, this really has kind of been a different offense in how they've attacked. And if everybody remembers Mike McCarthy's comment in the offseason, how he wants to run the ball and protect his defense and yada, yada. I think he started out that way and wanting to play that way and play to his defense, but it didn't really help his offense. And since San Francisco, they've been much more open. Dak's throwing the ball more. They're using more motion. They're using more personnel groups. They're getting different guys on the field and getting them to make plays. Where they didn't do that maybe the first 5 weeks of the season entering that San Francisco game. So it's almost like that's the line of demarcation of when the McCarthy effect took over. And I think some of it is honestly, Bram, it's Dak kind of took over where he's using his legs more. Maybe not to run and do all that and be what Dak was his first few years before the ankle injury, but using his legs more to get outside the pocket, buy time, and make plays in the passing game that way. That was surely missing in the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
So he's playing pretty well, but if you watch coverage of them, and I guess it's just part of being part of the Dallas Cowboys, any mistake is just so overemphasized by everybody. How have you seen him kind of handle that this year? Because in the big leverage games, they've lost. So how is he personally kind of handling criticism that comes his way?
Yeah, he gets it. Like he's quickly understood, probably going back to his rookie year, how every move he makes and every move he doesn't make is going to get overanalyzed and criticized, and he's learned how to deal with that. I asked CeeDee Lamb today, when you think of all the stuff Dak has to go through, would you ever want to change spots with him? He said, no, not at all. So, even his teammates know that he deals with a different level of scrutiny than what those guys deal with. And he does a outstanding job of dealing with all that stuff. And some of it is just, it's the Cowboys. It's everything that Jerry wants the Cowboys to be, whether they're good or bad. They're never indifferent. Everybody has a take on them.
Yeah.
And I think Dak has learned how to deal with that and has probably learned that pretty quickly in his career. So this year's really nothing new. It is funny to me when people say, well, he's never won a big game. Okay, well, that's just ridiculous. Now, he's not won the biggest game, but in the course of 7 years plus of being the team starter, he had to have won some big games. Like, he won at Pittsburgh as a rookie. That was a big game, but no one remembers it because it's here and probably elsewhere too. It's about what you do in the playoffs, and he's not gotten past the divisional round. And that's what this season has always shaped up to be. It's not about the first 18 weeks of the season. It's what you're going to do in the playoffs. So for Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, getting the playoffs is great. It's what you're going to do when you get into the win-and-go-home games.
Yeah.
And that's life in the big leagues, right?
Yeah. Not that I'm asking you to criticize your colleague here, but Stephen A. Smith comes after him. I mean, it's almost like he's waiting for them to fail, and then he makes fun of them, and it becomes this big thing. It's almost like a bit. And I guess to your point, Jerry wants there to be no indifference to this, but after a while, I can't imagine it doesn't bother him on some level that every mistake that he makes is just going to get overemphasized and become the A block in every television segment.
Well, and Dak was, again, asked about it today a little bit, and he goes, I control what I hear. So he's not aware of it. I'm sure he's got people, his family, his friends, that are watching all these shows, right, and telling him some of those things. So he's getting it secondhand at least. But what was the you never let him see you sweat? What was that?
Yeah.
Way back in the day?
Yeah.
That's Dak. Like, he'll never, whether it bugs him or not, he's not going to allow us, the general media, to win when it comes to that stuff. So he does a good job of dealing with all of those things. But, yeah, in some of these cases, like, you just kind of have to take it for what it is, and I think he does.
Okay. All right, last thing, since you mentioned Sam Howell, the reason why he's the starter this year is because he performed well in the one game that he got last year against the Cowboys. So I wonder, from their point of view, what are they saying about Sam Howell 11 games into this season from what they see?
It's funny, they talked more about not how the sacks that he's taken, because if you look at the Cowboys pass rush, that's really a strength of their team, right? So they were downplaying hey, we're going to get after this guy because everybody's gotten after him. And they accentuated the positives, especially Mike McCarthy saying, like, it looks like they're playing free, that they're not holding their system back because he's a young guy still learning. And, before last week, some of his numbers were on par with what Dak had done over the last 5 or 6 games in terms of passing yards and touchdowns. So I think the Cowboys view this guy as a legit quarterback. And you look at the last 2 games, they played Tommy DeVito making his first start. He's Tommy DeVito. I know he looks different to Washington fans after last week. And then they played Bryce Young. Now, clearly the number 1 pick in the draft has a lot of talent, but there's a lot of issues going on in Carolina that are probably above the quarterback's pay grade down there where he really didn't have much of a chance to do anything. So they've not given up a 100-yard rusher this year. They've not given up a 100-yard receiver. I'm curious how Terry McLaurin does this week because he won't have Trayvon Diggs following him like has happened the last couple of years. But they think Sam Howell's a legit quarterback and a guy that can do some damage against them. I also point to I know the run game's not great, obviously, but the Cowboys' run defense is probably the weakest part of their unit.
Well, we don't run the ball. We're like allergic to it. So it isn't that Washington can't do it. It's we choose not to. So that's which will be interesting because we've been screaming into the wind to run the ball more. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. Todd, thank you so much for coming on. Early happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully I'll catch up with you at the stadium on Thursday. Appreciate it.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bram. Appreciate it.